Around the world, people live different lives, doing different things that are unique and make us who we are, writing our own stories and learning new things along the way. We all learn different things. We all face different challenges and obstacles, but manage to get through them one way or another. We as humans go through our own journeys, and we learn as we build our own resilience. No matter how much we get beat down, what matters is how we get back up. And everyone loves a good story. Welcome to the Neil Coutts Show.
Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in to today's show of the Neil Coutts Show. My name's Neil Coutts, and your guest, or our guest here today, is Master Kaos, DJ Master Kaos. Well, his name is Damien Newell, but yeah, most of you guys out there would probably know him as Master Kaos. So without further ado, before I bring him on just to say hi, just wanted to say that thank you very much, Damien, for coming on to the show. And yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thanks very much, mate. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome, buddy. So, Damien, you've been DJing was it just in the Melbourne scene that you were DJing, or has it been all around Australia that you had the opportunity to DJ?
No, it's definitely been all around Australia. I started off in Brisbane with the idea of becoming a DJ, and then, I took it to Melbourne, where, I suppose, a bit of luck. I was, in 2 years, I was doing New Year's Eve parties, and also, I was signed to Base Station through Ministry of Sound and started touring with them, so doing albums all around the country. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. So you were first hooked up with Ministry of Sound, was it?
So Base Station was my first residency there.
Yeah.
And they did a number of albums on the Hard Energy series, live through Ministry of Sound.
Yeah.
And then they ended up bringing to their own club through Base Station. They wanted to do their own label, obviously.
Yeah.
So, which was released on Ministry of Sound. So they did their first Base Station CD, which was a dual album. They did. The second one was with myself and Jason Midro. That was in 2002.
Yeah.
Jason Midro did the first disc. I did the second one. And then they said, listen, Kaos, you're doing well enough now that I reckon you could do an album on your own. So I did the first Space Station DJ series, Volume 1. So,
wow.
Yeah, there were tours involved with that around the country. And, that was in 2004. And then in 2005 and 6, I did I was a resident at a Bubble nightclub, and I did both of their albums as well. So, yeah, it just went onward and upward from there. So.
Okay. So how did you get into the whole music thing? Like when you were growing up, were you always into dance music? Or did you a lot of people that have their parents playing a lot of music around them? How did you get your foot into music? Well,
my parents did play all those sorts of music in the background, but funny enough, at school I saw someone with this ghost pearl sort of white VW, and he used to rock out all this hardcore and all these parties from overseas, just on cassette tape, and it was bloody excellent. So he got me right into it, and when I was younger, I was able to get a younger ID, let's say, that got me into the nightclubs, and it was history from there. So about 17, I think I started. I went to my first rave, and it was just, it was phenomenal. So never looked back.
All right. And how did you get into DJing side of it?
Well, when I went to I think it was Thunderdome in 1995 was my first rave, and that was in Brisbane at the time. Yeah. And there was, these stormtroopers and these people dressed up in all these outfits, and there was rides, like carnival rides there. They put on this awesome show. They had all the lasers and the lighting, and I hadn't seen anything like that in my lifetime before. And then I saw all these DJs, and there was one DJ there in particular, DJ Angus, and he was also in the hip-hop scene and did turntablism. Oh. So I saw him get up there, and he was doing all this scratching and all these tricks behind his back and under his legs, and I was like, now that's the type of DJ I want to be. So Yeah, so he was the catalyst for me actually. So
Oh,
he
wow.
gave me the ideas to, I suppose, come to Melbourne,
Mm.
and I think, and that's what gave me the edge to really take off was that I brought something different to Melbourne. Wasn't just techno, it wasn't just normal DJing. It was my unique style of three decks mixing, along with my scratching techniques and turntablism myself. And within 2 years, I started as a touring DJ. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Was it easy to get into DJing at the start, or did you have some challenges along the way?
Well, it sort of was for me because I had that it factor. Let's say
Yeah.
I had a different selling point than everybody else.
Yeah.
Everybody else was just the normal standard DJ. Everyone wanted to be a DJ,
Mm.
but I had that different flair, which was doing more tricks, more stage performance, sort of orientated DJing. So,
Yeah.
and that really worked for me. So as soon as I got my first gig and got out there, people wanted to see more of it and see what it was really about. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you really brought something different to the game, yeah, when you got into DJing, yeah?
Yeah, totally. So what I did for a while too was I knew that there were different types of classes of DJ, that everyone wanted to be a DJ. That was the in thing. It moved from the bands to wanting to be a DJ, but I wanted to sort of set up a new breed or a new class, which was you can either be a DJ or you can be a scratch or turntablism DJ in the techno industry. And they're basically a cut above everybody else because the skills that are and the level of talent that is involved in scratching and hip hop mixing and all that sort of thing, and over techno, which is at a faster BPM rate,
Yeah.
is a lot higher a skill level than just your normal average DJ, just pressing start and play and whatever else. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you have anyone to learn from, or was it something that you had to self-teach yourself?
So I hassled this guy Angus back in the day in Brisbane,
Yeah.
and I went to him and said I wanted to learn how to DJ, and he just thought I wanted to do it for the fame or for the girls or anything like that.
Yeah.
So he just kept on ignoring me, and I kept on hitting him up every party, just going, mate, I really want to do it. I really want to do it. So I think I was 18 at the time, and he charged me $120 an hour, and I was like, this
Wow.
guy. But when I went in there, he said to me, he goes, I'll teach you something that no one else can do, that no one else will teach you, and that'll set you off. So, yeah, which was scratching. He said, don't, and I asked him about beat mixing. He goes, don't worry about that. You can learn that in your own time.
Yeah.
But he gave me the formula or basically the basics to start off with that I could extend and learn as I progressed and went on. So once he taught me that initial stage, then then I just did research on YouTube and watched other hip hop artists and just picked up different techniques, worked them out, and yeah. So I had one or two. I think I had 2 lessons with him, and then the rest that was enough to get the bug for it and take it on board. Yeah, yeah.
Did you have who were like some of your inspirations when it comes to scratch DJing?
Definitely Qbert, Mixmaster Mike, DJ Craze. He's a 3 times world DMC champion. He's just nuts. He's using all these tractor controllers and drum machines and all that kind of stuff with turntables and things now. I think those guys were the main ones. So they're just so fast. They've been representing it, doing it for year on year for 30 years, and they're elites at what they do. So even just taking a small fraction of what they do and picking up some of those skills and then taking them into the techno scene, I just really cleaned up.
Oh, yeah. No, I could imagine. I remember seeing you at Bubble, and hearing you scratch, I was like, that's unique because you don't get a lot of DJs in the dance scene really scratching, do you?
No, you don't. You don't.
Yeah. So when you ended up DJing in Melbourne and DJing for Base Station, did your popularity rise real quick? Was it easy to handle that sort of? Didn't you have a rise in popularity? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very fast. It was very interesting because I was this little guy that came from Queensland that really didn't have too much ambition or didn't think I could do it all, and the fame did hit pretty pretty hard and pretty fast. So, but it's a weird thing because no one can tell you who you really are inside. So by that I mean, like, at the end of the night, you've got to, you fall asleep and you look in the mirror and you know who you really are, what you see in the mirror. So it was, it didn't matter how many people said, oh, you're the best, or you could do this, or you could be number one. And people were saying all this, all the time, but it's just who I thought I was as a person. So not until really after my rise and sort of it plateaued out did I, and now that I think I'm older, can I look back and go, I just didn't know where I was. It was all happening. I should have just lapped it up, taken it on board, and,
Yeah.
But now, I was just like, no, I still thought I was that same person, where now I look back and see it a lot differently, with experience. So, yeah. So, yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, so the fame, in it, was it good? Did you enjoy the whole fame side of it, or was it something where you weren't a big fan of it because, people would hassle you wherever you went?
Sometimes it was, I liked them coming up. Other times where, if I had stuff going on with my life, my personal life, or relationships and things like that, or if I just wasn't in the mood, that was quite hard. Even when I used to play on stage, it was very interesting. It's like people knew whether I was going through a tough time in my life or a rocky time. So it had its ups and downs. And one of the hard things I think with DJing is you have to have a mindset for it, and you've got to have all the pieces. You can't just be creative or talented, because you need to be able to deal with that fame. You need to be in control of, the drug scene and culture and all the pressure and staying up all the late nights and all that sort of stuff. A definite balance goes into that. So, it can be very challenging, and I've seen a lot of people rise and fall because of it. So, yeah.
So did you get involved yourself personally in the whole drugs and stuff like that behind the rave scene?
Of course, yes. I think it goes without saying. I think you need a little bit of that to open your mind, to have some sort of awareness, but not take it too far. You can't have really too many issues or use it for escapism and all that kind of thing. There's a fine balance between it all as well. So, you need to learn what your boundaries are yourself. So I've gone across the line and, and sort of, one side of the line and the other side of the line. So, where now I sort of found peace with it all, and just, it's very challenging though, very, very challenging. And to do the number of gigs and things that they request you to do and to promote yourself is very hard as well. I found that I had to, just to stay up and do that, to get all these gigs, to fit into all these crews and promoters and get my name out there and things like that. Otherwise, if you're not a part of that scene in the industry, then you sort of didn't really fit in. It's a lot harder for you to fit into that culture. So, So I don't know if it's different now. I wouldn't have to do that now because my name is, well known and big enough to do that. So, which I'm happy about. But it was, very, very taxing earlier on too. Yeah, definitely. So
you sort of had to, like, back then, look like you were hip with them and take drugs to be able to try and get gigs out there, Is that what you're pretty much saying?
Well, to stay up those long hours, to go to the after parties, to be able to mingle with them. So you'd essentially have your night out, and then it's about the social interaction afterwards, and all the promoters, the club managers and people, they'll have their little meeting and after party, and that's where I suppose you start meeting certain people. Yeah. And that's where those promoters that are connected to those other clubs, then they'll say, you're a cool dude, and not because you're taking drugs at all, but just because they got to hang out with you, got to know you, and so then they recommend you to some of the other venues and other promoters and stuff that they're doing as well, and that's how I got on board anyway. So, yeah.
So, a bit of basic networking, yeah?
Yes, yeah. And, it's impossible to do all that. back in those days anyway, because there's so many clubs and nights and events, and it goes from Thursday night to Friday night to Saturday morning recovery to Saturday night to to Sunday and even Monday morning. So to do all these clubs and nights, it's pretty hard.
So how did you get your first gig? Like, was it just when you were in Brisbane basically? Did you just get selected by Ministry of Sound, or was it...
No. So in Brisbane, I didn't play anywhere. That's where the concept and the inspiration come from. But when I went to Melbourne, I just started a normal job at a call centre, and I had some people come over, and they were like, "Oh, you can DJ pretty good," and they must have been in the rave scene, and they knew some people. And they said, "Oh, there's this party coming up. We'll try and get you a gig there." Oh. So Garth from Smile Police, he put me on one of his parties. So so I managed to get a door in there, and then obviously I did some show-off scratching just to do something different, and people were like, "What's that?" So then it just was gig after that, and
oh wow!
Even on my promotional, I did it at the lounge. I did a practice one because I was playing with Versaset with Rude Boy, which been playing probably 20 years in the scene in techno and way more skilled than myself. But that's where Jason Midro was, and he came up and saw me. And as soon as I started scratching, he said, "Oh, don't worry about giving me a demo." He goes, "Here's my number. I'll call you. You start next week as a residency at Bay Station." So,
wow. So you really had the cards fall into your play as soon as you got that first gig in Melbourne with the help of Garth, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. And it's just purely, I believe, because I just had a different style and something else to offer. So it's very interesting. Like if I look at people as well that are up and coming and DJing, like when you've got it, when you're talented or you've got that it factor, or you can see it in other people. So I can see it in younger people, and then I see myself in them too, and they just go, "Oh, I'm not sure I can really do it," or "I'm good enough," and all these sort of things, and you're just like, wow, they don't know what they're in for. So, and this is what all these promoters do. They lap it up. They can see the same thing, and they go, "Come over here, come on board," and So that's what they essentially did to me, and I think that's what Jason saw in me, and that's why he held on to me for so long, because
you basically had that X factor there, and he wanted to cash in on it basically by having you at his gigs. It would basically...
Well, he was smart, very smart, and that's why he put my name on the CDs and started touring me around, because he knew that I could connect with the people. I was a good sort of mentor and for the scene and things like that, and so he started pushing me everywhere, thanks to him as well. So
what was it like being on your first CD, mix CD there with, was it Bay Station, right?
Yes, it was, really different. Just going into the studio to mix an album. Also, just seeing how it all works, because it's not like a demo where you've got to put in your track listing, you put a certain selection in of your A selection, and then your B selection, and depending on copyrights and laws and things, it depends what you get back. So so that CD is not even the best representation of yourself. It's just depends what comes back, and then you just work with what you've got. So it made me look at other artists differently as well, because it's just a ball game of, if I want to scratch Eminem and things like that over the top, you'd have to write to him, and they go, "Well, we're hip hop. We don't, I don't want that on a techno label, because that's not the angle that they want to go down." So it made it really interesting, actually. So
So with your first CD, did you manage to get a lot of your A-list tracks on there, or was it a lot of going back and forward to try and get that CD?
Going back and forth, it was. Yeah, definitely. And also some of the scratching and things got cut out. It was. The first one was quite shattering, because they actually took probably 3 minutes 40 off the start of my CD, of my album. That's where I had all my intro, and I started off with a sample saying, electronic music is really great, but my style is much better. And I dropped into breakbeat. So I just wanted to show that I wasn't just techno. I started playing breakbeat, and then I started mixing 3 decks, doing some juggles and things over the top. And that all got cut off from Ministry of Sound, and they started at about 3 or 4 minutes into my set. So there's 3 decks going. It's not clashing, but there's all too much going on. You haven't had that beautiful intro phase, and so when the album got released, I was like, "This is not even my album. What's going on here?" So, so very interesting.
That's business for you, I guess. If it's going to cost them too much money as well just for a 5-second sample, I guess they're not going to pay that big dollars for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So so that's pretty interesting. So how does the whole studio side of it work? Like you're saying, it's not like just doing a demo with 2 decks in your bedroom. What was it like? Did you have were you able to do it all in one hit, or was it something where you did a couple of tracks, you went back and listened to it and then kept going forward? How does that process work?
Yeah, it wasn't a couple of hits, so you would have to finish it that day. But if the mix wasn't right, you could go back and redo it and try it again, basically. So, yeah. So, it's about trying to put the intro together and just trying to work out a structure. That was quite challenging in itself. But even the guy from Ministry, he was just like, he just said, "Mate, it's like, what's Jason Midro doing?" He goes, because I said, "I don't know," because I was so young back then. And he said, "Well, I've seen him record all these sets on Hard Energy and Bass Station and things." And he goes, "Well, if you're doing something like that," he goes, "I wonder what he's doing," because he just thought it was amazing, because I started off doing 3 tracks and all these tricks, and he's just gone, whoa. I think people hadn't seen it really before, So that was the same on tour. When I went and did shows in, Cairns and Darwin, I had people, owners and managers come up and just say, they said, "Kaos, come to my office, but get out an expensive bottle of scotch," and they just go, "Mate, cheers to you." They said, "In 17 years, I've had Nick Fish, Amber Savage, I've had all the people come up and do all their shows," and they said, "I've never seen anything like that before." So, and it's just all the hip hop tricks and things that I've incorporated and merging the 2 styles together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Oh wow! So you would have really felt high on life at that time, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Mate. Yeah. They took me bungee jumping for free, and tours were pretty good, pretty special. Yeah.
You had the expensive dinners as well.
They looked after you good.
So what was your favourite gig?
I think there's probably a number of them. I would say the Earth Cores were really good. Pharmacies were always exceptional. Playing with Scott Project was awesome. Going on tour with him around Australia as well was awesome. And the other one I'd say would definitely be the Rod Laver Arena with Tiesto, where he did his I think it was New Year's Eve, and it was, because he did 2 shows. He did a Sydney show and a Melbourne show. So I played before him on that at Rod Laver to 10,000 people. So the system and the sound and how big and loud it is, and the reflections from the room. So you've got 8-foot speakers there in front of you, and you've got your little headphones on. You're hearing one version of the sound in these headphones, then you've got a second version of it coming through 8-foot speakers, then you've got the entire main system hitting the back wall and reflecting and coming back to you. You're hearing 3 versions of the same song. You're like, oh, which one am I beat mixing to? So it's big systems are amazing. It's just a whole different space. It is.
So. What is it like, because of there's so much room in the arena, like basically what you're DJing and what you hear out your headphones, there's almost like a bit of a 2-second delay, isn't there?
There totally is, yeah. The bigger it is, the more delay there is, and it's really, it can be. I suppose that's where the experience comes into it, and that's where you notice the difference between guys that have been played on bigger stages, or like when I got out of a club. Nightclub is a nightclub, but then when you start doing festivals and Two Tribes and Slinky and God's Kitchens and Summer Days and all those sorts of places, and Sydney Myer Music Bowl. Just the openness and the sound system, it's just really different, and that's where the nerves come in, and the extra set of nerves, and just the edge of that's where you see these Axwells and all these big DJs and Dead Mouses and Scott Projects and Kai Tracid and Ultrasonic, and that's where you see the experience kick in compared to the younger DJs that haven't played those sort of gigs. They don't shy away from it, because even when you start moving some of the cuts and things on the mixer and everything, just the sheer volume and power from just doing cuts and stopping beats and then slamming it back in, it's just like you can really feel it. So it's can be quite what's the word? So not temperamental, but it could be what do you call it? It's
like sensitive.
Yeah, it's very sensitive to it. Yeah, and you can just you can just feel it going on. So it's you've got to experience it. So it's amazing.
Well, I've had the experience of DJing at a rave, I think, and a nightclub, and just the atmosphere as well. It can be real magic when you've got a whole room moving, and you just got to basically take a sound out, put it back in, and the crowd, it's almost like magic, yeah?
Yeah, it is. It's awesome.
So you've gotten to DJ all these different gigs around Australia and the festivals in Australia. You've supported DJs as well. What was your favourite DJ to support?
There's been quite a few. So, Tiesto's got to be Tiesto, as I said. Scott Project's definitely up there. Brooklyn Bounce, Ultrasonic. Now, that was cool because I grew up with them in the early 90s in Brisbane, and then got to play with them at Chasers at Base Station there, and that was crazy. I actually went and saw them this year as well. They did, I think, their last final tour. That was Pee Wee Ferris. So my mate flew up from Melbourne, and he came up and saw it in the Brisbane show. So who else? Fred Baker was cool. I suppose they're all pretty good. The bigger the artist, the better the stage, the better the event. You've got Armand Van Buren, Carl Cox. Now, he was awesome. New Year's Day, I think it was Shed 14 or something like that. Might have been Summer's Day, or can't remember the party, but just his sheer presence, he's just this giant, dark-skinned dude. Can't say black, can I? But he's, just presence of the guy. He's amazing, and just. We were slaying it. I was doing it with the Ninth Insight with LCK and myself, and we were slaying it. And Cosmic Gate was on there with us as well. But then as soon as Carl Cox got there and he was just walking behind us on the stage, you could just feel the crowd and the energy. It just really lifted up. And we were just like, what's going on? And the guy hadn't even played or done anything. And we were just looking at each other going, whoa, you could just feel the vibe in the room just go through the roof. And it wasn't because us and we're still playing. It was just because of his presence and being there. It's just incredible.
No, he's got one big smile. I tell you what, you look at him and
doesn't he? He's got one big aura around him.
That's what I'm going to say.
Beaming.
But I think that comes with the experience, and I guess a lot of people know him, and he's been around in the scene for a long time. Is it true? You'll probably be able to confirm for me. Is it true that he's actually clinically deaf from playing all that loud music?
I don't know. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, I heard
really.
I heard that once. Because you can imagine, banging techers going on, and he's got the headphones cranking. He's been doing it for over now, probably nearly 30 years. Yeah. That you almost have industrial deafness from it. But I heard that. I thought maybe you would know.
No, I don't know actually. No, I haven't heard that one. Yeah, interesting.
So, did you get the opportunity to DJ overseas at all?
So I did some tours to New Zealand. for a couple of the albums. There's a bit of controversy on one of them, which was I had lined up a world tour with Scott Project through the Pharmacy label and things like that, and I was going to take LCK with me. But that's a touchy subject. So we had a world tour, and I basically got a remix or do an album, mixed album together. Scott Project on one, the Ninth Inside on the other side. But some things fell out there and didn't go according to plan, and we missed the world tour. So still gutted about that, but obviously it wasn't meant to be. So yeah.
I can imagine, it would have been a really big break to be able to support him around the world, because then you're not only really known within Australia and New Zealand, but the rest of the world, yeah?
Sure. Yeah, huge, yeah. So I probably wasn't mentally ready for it at the time. Now that I think back, I think I'd do a lot better now. I was still in that phase where didn't know myself, and as I said, you've got to have all aspects of yourself to be a DJ. So because my career shot up so fast, it was the career was going good, but mentally I had to be right. Your career's got to be right. Your family shit, your demons have got to be good. Your childhood's got to be good. You've got to have all that. So then when you are on that live stage, then, and I think that's where I am now. I'm in a good spot and a better position. And if those sort of things happen, that I'd be more at peace and be able to perform and do the job and do what I do well. Be creative and be in the flow. Really, yeah.
So how old were you when you started DJing?
Would have been 20. It would have been 20. So probably 18 I sort of got into it. 19 I probably had my first lesson with Angus, and then I moved to Melbourne in 2000, and then got my first residency at Base Station, and I think 2001 or 2002 I might have done my first 2002 I did my first CD. So
So is there is there a lot of politics in the scene when you were basically getting into DJing? Like, you had to be friends with certain people, or you couldn't be friends with other people. Was there much politics?
Yeah, definitely, and there still is today. It's one of the things that I think that sort of lets down the industry. But I think you get it with anywhere, in any business, corporation, any industry, you know what I mean? So, it's the same thing with Sydney versus Melbourne. It's political, whether it's bloody football or sports or whatever it is. So it is. It's very cliquey, and it was back then. Hopefully, a lot of us have grown up and have sort of moved out of that sort of thing. But there was a lot of exclusivity that came to me that I wasn't able to play at other venues and things like that. But once my name got big enough, I ended up sort of tried to lay down the law a little bit and go, okay, no, I just want to play good music to good people, and do it that way. So.
So
I watched that movie. Russell Crowe, the Gladiator.
Yeah, I know that movie. Who doesn't?
Yeah. Well, he was. I saw that, and he's like, if you win the crowd, you win your freedom. And I got told that I wasn't able to play anywhere, so I knuckled down. Waited until I made my name a lot bigger, and then I said, okay, now the second time I said, okay, this time I'm going to jump shit, and I said, well, your job mightn't be here if you do that. And I thought, I'll take that risk now, because my name was too big, everywhere wanted me. So, and I suppose they couldn't let me go. So I got away with it. I got away with a bit more than most other people anyway, you could say.
So what did you, what were some of the things that you had to do to build that name of yours to take it to that place where you could dictate the terms?
It's about having a rapport with both the crowd. Well, it was probably most of the crowd and the punters, because they supported me. I wasn't allowed to play at Hard Candy, but the thing is, Hard Candy was the bigger nightclub. They had the better venue. They were both on Friday night alongside Base Station, but they had all the glitz and glamour over there, but they just didn't have Kaos. And a lot of people just said the only thing that this is missing is Kaos. And they hassled their owners to like bring me over, but they already had their DJs. None of them wanted a piece of me over there. But once they just got hassled by the punters, going, "We want Kaos here. We want to see him play over here." So they had to put off one of their resident DJs to allow me to play on one of their nights. So
wow.
yeah, they weren't too happy about it, but they had to. I suppose you've got to give the fans what they want every now and then. So so I ended up playing I played 3 venues that night, and I was the only DJ that could do it. I was hated. I was hated by the guys that obviously the guy that resident, he had to sit out that week, and well, not my fault, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and so all that pressure was kind of very hard to take, and especially when you're young and you're just trying to play music, because I went there to have a good time, but I just had all the other DJs behind me and just peering at me, watching me. What does this guy do? Why is he so good? And just waiting for me to make a mistake and choke. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So So you've got to have your A game going on. So
yeah. So what was it like having to move between 3 different clubs in one night?
I started to, well, apart from some of the people, I suppose, liking you and not liking you, or you're taking their spot or whatever else, I ended up getting used to it because, when I first started, I was only making $100 an hour for DJing.
Yeah.
And to make a normal wage, you had to do a heap of gigs on the weekends. So, so I ended up probably, some nights I was doing, some weekends I was doing 7 gigs a weekend. So I was doing 2 or 3 a night, and especially if you had the public holiday.
Yeah,
because that gives you your Monday and Sunday nights to book out as well. So you had all 3 days. So I think I did 7 or 9 gigs in one weekend or something. So, and this is what I mean. You've got to stay up. You've got to go to them, and you just run from one gig, go to the next, run to another one. One time I flew to Sydney, played in Sydney, then I came back, got on a plane, and then I had to play 5 a.m. at Bubble in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I'm running down the street with my record boxes. And so pretty hectic. Yeah.
So did you feel like you lost a bit of, how can I say, your youth, I guess, because you were working rather than getting to go out and party because you had to keep moving, go to your different gigs?
No, I don't think so, because I got to, my youth was probably being at these gigs, you know what I mean? I'm quite fortunate where I've never had to pay for a party. It would have saved me, thousands over the years, especially these real expensive ones. Even at Esoteric, where I played the 4-day festival this year, I think they're like bloody $400 a ticket, $600 a ticket or something. So, and that's amazing festival to play at. So, I've always been at all the events. I think I've missed more family time actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even Christmas and even just at Christmas night, they always had Christmas candy, and I went out for 10 years. I went and did that instead of staying home with family. And then same with New Year's. So always out, and that's why I had probably a good circle of friends, that a crew that you would drive to Geelong with me, or go on these big trips, and I'd get them all in, and we'd have a ball. We'd just go in there, they'd drive and chafe me around, and we'd go for one party, and then we'd come back and play in Melbourne, do a show in Geelong, and just so I did it with my best mates, so that always helped.
Yeah, no, I get that. Being with people that you love really makes the experience a bit more, rather than, I guess, doing it on your own, I reckon.
Definitely. That was one thing about touring that I always thought as well, was that if I tour, that I want to do it with somebody else, you know what I mean? Or just because you can come back and you can tell your wife or your family or your friends or your parents and say, oh, this was amazing, I had a great time. And, if you play at Tomorrowland or someone big, and they will go, oh, that's really good, congratulations and stuff. But they would never understand like what it was like or had that experience with you. So if you could share that with a best mate or someone like that, and I think that's why I also did came up with the 9th Insight with LCK, was that we're best mates, that we could do that, and that then at least we could go back to our families and separate and stuff, but we could look at each other and go, that was pretty hot, wasn't it? That was pretty amazing. So yeah, definitely.
So did you ever get into music production besides your DJing?
Yes, totally. I suppose that's what this gear at the back is and stuff like that. So that's been a long process. It's a hell of a process to do that. It's always going to be a work in progress. You're always going to be learning. It's just like life. Sound frequencies and dynamics and stuff like that is just intense. It's just a whole other world and level. So I'm looking at producing some melodic techno at the moment. So, you know, I would like to start my own record label through Australian Underground Sounds.
Yeah.
So I've started that up with my best mate in Melbourne, DJ Bossy. So, yeah, we're running our own podcasts, which we're starting a new one coming up in probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep.
That's going to be called the MK and Bossy Show.
Yeah.
Basically news, tech, interviews, and a bit of banter as well. So we've got our podcast. We're doing some live streams as well. We're going to actually run our own live stream event.
Oh, okay.
So we've got heaps of plans as well as the record label. So and once everything opens up, we're hoping to do our own party as well. So
awesome. So did you get to release any tracks in the past, like when you're in your, in your big days, when you're DJing all over the place? Were you into production then, or has production been something more now recently?
Yeah, definitely more now and recently. I wasn't crafted or skilled enough back then. I've never done music. I've never had a music lesson, so I've just had to make it up as I go. I wish I did now, for sure. Because you start to once I sort of got to the top of DJing, in Australia, you start to realise then the difference is these guys like Sean Sullivan and Steve Ward and these guys that have been, either playing piano or playing the drums and doing all these sorts of things, and they've got a bit of an edge on you. So, so it's just been a learning process throughout the years with myself. And it just takes up so much time. It really does. So, but we're looking to release our first track, melodic techno track. That's something I'm actually working on at the moment. So,
I look
so
forward.
Hopefully pull it off.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to listening to it when it does come out. Make sure you send me a link to it and I can check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
But because I guess like a lot of these international DJs that are touring, they're all producers in their own right, and if they're not producing, they're at least doing remixes of other people's tracks. Yeah. Yeah,
they are. So it was said to me many years ago that to make it in DJing or internationally, that you've got to write or produce music. But then I had my philosophy, and it stood from the hip hop days and how they got out there. Once you become a world champion in DMC and stuff, they don't have to write music or anything. You just needed that kind of skill, and basically how I started my career. So it is true in the dance scene that you do need to write music, and that's the best way of getting there now, for sure, because times have changed. But probably in 2005, 6, 10, if I did the world tour and hit it off with all my technical ability and stuff, then people would have got introduced to me, and I probably would have done remixes with them and learned the craft that way. But I would have got on that main stage from just using the scratching and technique and performing and stuff like that. I knew that was always an avenue and way to go. But in 2020, you've got to write your own tunes.
Yeah. So if you were to pick one DJ, who's your favourite international DJ?
Oh. Now, Charlotte DeWitt, she's good to look at. It changes every year. It used to be Paul Oakenfold. It used to be Dead Mouse. Used to love his work. A funny story with Dead Mouse was that he, because of his mouse head that he used to wear, he ended up getting sued from Disney. For a lot of money, because they thought it was taking away from Mickey Mouse and things like that. And he's saying it's totally different. But they were just trying to cash on the money that he was making because he was just, obviously one of the biggest players in the world at that time. But then he got a funny letter saying, he was getting sued for a couple of years. But then Disney, they asked him if he could do the score for Fantasia. So he wrote back to me, is this before or after you're suing me, When do you want me to write it? So, it's a funny world. But probably Boris Brejcha.
Okay.
Probably in the last year or so, and I think my influences are changing again, but Boris Brejcha for about the last 2 years, maybe 3 years. He's a German producer playing. He calls it high-tech minimal is his style, so it's more like minimal techno, but his production and his writing is just amazing, and it's the only sound and vibe like it in the world. So, and he's sort of creating his own little craft and sound and techniques there. So he represents himself with a clown mask and that he's renowned for. Started off playing big gigs and now he's doing Tomorrowland and he plays everywhere. So he's one of the biggest acts and really, really cool tunes.
Awesome. So, look, I'll wrap it up, but what I wanted to ask you, right, for all the aspiring DJs out there, what tips would you have for them in getting started?
I think it's definitely about the work and the hours that you put in. I think it is like with anything in life. The more hours you put in, you're going to notice. So if you can put in more hours than anybody else, then usually you'll come out on top of everybody else. So if you think about your peers and what they're doing, if they're only spending an hour a day and stuff, but if you're putting 4 or 5 hours or 8 hours or just all your time into it, I think, but you've got to like it. It's got to be like it's not work for you.
Yeah,
it needs to be. It's just effortless, and you're still enjoying it. Because if you're not enjoying it, then it's not coming from the right place. So, but the other thing is, it's about you need to be conscious of what you're doing. So, or it's about your workflow and conscious practicing. So. Everyone can put in hours, but how relevant and how good? What's the quality of the type of quality of those hours for someone that's doing 4 or 5 hours a day, and someone putting in a conscious sort of a good quality in 1 hour, as opposed to 4 or 5 hours of just playing randomly, not thinking about what you're doing, and just playing tracks and things like that. You need to do drills and real meaningful quality of exercises and training and stuff, just like with anything else, just like as in working out, going to the gym, and you're trying to exercise those muscles and everything. It's not just getting there and just playing a session and a set every day, because that's not really quality sort of training. So there's a lot to be said about workflow, organisation and workflow. So the organisation of my live performances, going out and playing, and then also workflow in regards to my studio work. So you can sit in a studio, you can sit there looking at the screen for 12 hours trying and going around in circles and everything, or you could spend some quality time resting your ears, come back and just and just conscious sort of editing and things like that. So there's lots of things you can look up on YouTube, and there's lots of videos and documentaries and stuff on workflow. So I'd recommend that. That's the way to go. Like more conscious and quality training and workflows is better than putting in a heap of hours.
So basically, really like organising your music and stuff like that, knowing the songs that you're playing, but also trying to test out new things while you're DJing so you can improve upon your craft, yeah? Yeah,
definitely. Preparation is massive, especially this day and age with all the digital gear and it all being MP3 files and everything, cue points, track selection, keys, tempo, all that sort of stuff, arrangements and progression of tunes and things like that. So all of that is key, and it's about also being inspired and watching what other people are doing. Yeah. Because I think we get set in our own ways of like how we do things, and we just go, oh, well, I'm just going to keep doing it that way because I know that way, and that's easy for me, and that's just my style. But if we try and copy somebody else's and go, how are they doing? How would they mix it? And try and, understanding and then putting it into your own sort of way. It's important to push those new boundaries and, and the music at the same time. So
like looking at some of your favourite artists that are DJing and picking up few little things from here and there and then importing it or, putting it into your own mixing, yeah?
Correct, yeah. That's what I did with Mixmaster Mike, DJ Noise, DJ Craze as hip-hop artists and scratching artists. And then also, there's cool people like James Hype, and there's, for techno and even basically the techno artists. You're looking at Richie Horton, Willie Tell, Jeff Mills, all the fader cutting techniques that they used to do, spin backs and double beating and all those sort of tricks and everything. I incorporated all the techno minimal stuff over the top of my trance mixing, and just to make it a bit more flashy and showy and and also have an edge on people. So if you can look and see what other people are doing, and then just try and pull them all in. If I use Bruce Lee as an analogy, if you just he grabbed all those different styles and put them into one style. So it's not just one style of mixing and or one genre. I think people that only play one genre have a very sort of surface level or basic sort of mixing technique. But if you play drum and bass, or if you play hip hop or R&B, and then you play house music, and then you play techno or something, all of those add to your belt and your suitcase of tools and stuff that you've got to use. So,
So, also when it comes to building your name, because you were talking about it earlier, that once you'd gotten your gigs in Melbourne, you sort of tried to build your name up so you could be able to dictate your own terms. What do you like? What will people have to do in their own case? Like, what's important, like basically to be able to build your image? What do you recommend?
I think branding, promotion. I think clubs. It's changed a lot since back in the day. We could just be a DJ and do those sorts of things, and club owners got on board and said, "Okay, now if you get people in the door, then we'll give you a gig." You know what I mean? So you had to be a promoter as well, and a lot of DJs don't like doing that. They like to focus on their own craft, but the bigger name that you are, the bigger impression and stuff that you have. That's why Boris Brescia, he's renowned for his clown mask sort of gear that he wears. So if you've got something that's different and that can pull more of a crowd, obviously promoters and people are going to you'd be more advantageous as to other DJs. But one thing, it's quite difficult. It can be, because when I was playing 7 gigs and getting $100 an hour, to building my name and then having to streamline that and go, okay, I'm only going to do 3 gigs, but I'm going to get charged $3.50 an hour. So, and then which ones I'm going to like say no to, and then trying to charge that, to say that you are worth that kind of money and streamline and everything and take that gamble. So, and I suppose when you start playing at those bigger festivals and things like that, you can start asking for more money, which so then you don't have to do all these little small ones in between, and you can end up getting $1,500 an hour and just whatever you do. So, so it's a process and it's a gamble, but you need to do it. Otherwise, you just because you've got to you need to have your own self-worth, and you've got to stick to your guns and know what you're worth and what you're about, and it's all part of that balance in that career lineup that I was talking about.
All right. So it's really you got to think outside the box to set yourself apart and find different ways, whether it's dressing up in obscure outfits or promoting yourself online and stuff like that. Yeah.
It is, fortunately and unfortunately, because I see it all the time, people dressing up in masks and outfits and stuff like that, but it really works for them. I'm watching a girl in the Ukraine at the moment, Miss Monique, she's called, and she's just got bright green hair. and then but her logos and her hoodies represent that. So she's got basically her face on it, but she's got that color in her hair. So then every time you see that logo, you know that she's represented by that. So it's just about being smart, and because on the internet and stuff like that now, there's so many people that are doing it that you need to set yourself apart somehow. So.
Okay, look, thank you very much for coming on to my show there today, Damien.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. That's been great.
You're welcome. So to all my subscribers out there today, just be sure to, if you enjoyed today's episode, to smash the like button. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner and hit the notification bell to hear about new episodes coming out. But from myself, Neil Coutts, and Damien Newell, who is also known as Master Kaos, thank you very much and have a good day.